a world of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's Thursday, the 7th of May, year of our Lord 2026. Well, to every lie, turn, 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 there is a season, turn, 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 and a reason for this. A time for them to have big profits under the sun. And we have another example of this that has happened. We just had some insider trading yesterday. And Trump is coming out talking about how, hey, you know, the whole world is a casino when he's asked about insider trading. The corruption is amazing. And we have Lucky Lutnik, who made another appearance before Congress, but you're not allowed to see what he did. Not allowed to read the transcript yet either. But there's going to be no video at all about that. Meanwhile, you have the ADL demanding $1 billion from taxpayers for security, quote unquote, while Israel is spending $750 million on lies and propaganda and politicians. And then we'll take a look at our self-worshiping leaders who are building places where you can go worship them. They call them libraries. They should call them just lies. That's what these people do. Obama has opened his, and there's some local people who are not very happy at all about what he's doing. Well, let's take a look at Lucky Lutnik. As they came out, the Democrats were furious at what was happening. I can't believe this guy. He is a pathological liar. The American people need to see not just a transcript of his evasive answers, but they need to see him sweating as he's being asked these questions. Again, this is all happening in the context of Operation Epstein liar. This is, as we see Trump spinning what is happening in the Middle East, spinning it for profits. Who knows? I mean, these guys who operate on Wall Street like Lutnik, that's exactly the kind of thing you would expect them to do, isn't it? And these are big bets. I mean, this latest one that happened in the wee hours of the morning, that's the other thing that makes it very suspicious. Nearly $1 billion. Yeah. And there was no public information lead up to that at all. Anyway, this is a closed door testimony, no video allowed. As they came out, you had people like this Democrat, James Walkinshaw, said Lutnik struggled to answer even basic questions. He's lying. Today's transcribed interview is part of the ongoing cover-up because the American people deserve to see the video of what's taking place in there. They deserve to see the sweat on his brow as he struggles to answer basic questions and lies to the American people. Unfortunately, it appears that Secretary Lutnik is not going to take any responsibility for lying to the American people today. Or any other day, by the way, I'll say. Look, this is the way the politicians operate, and it's bipartisan as well. They never admit that they're lying, no matter how they get caught red-handed. It's just amazing to me. It's one of the personality distinctions that's required to be a politician. You get caught red-handed committing a crime or lying. It's like, oh, this isn't what you think it is. This isn't really happening. Ro Khanna, the minority leader of the House, said Trump would fire Lutnik if he heard the answers that he gave, adding that Lutnik's performance was, quote, really embarrassing. Yeah, I don't think that he would fire him for committing perjury. He'd probably promote him. Hey, this guy's good at this stuff. I got to get him a higher level job. But no, he's right where he wants to be. Being Secretary of Commerce, just like Trump's first Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross, who was a Rothschild guy all of his life. Well, Lutnik has got his connections as well. Mr. Stablecoin, the guy I call Lucky Lutnik because he just happened to be taking his kid to kindergarten the day of 9/11. As all of his employees, including his brother, died. So yeah, it's, and I'm aware of that. As a matter of fact, somebody said, well, he couldn't have taken that. He couldn't have known about that in advance. I mean, he might let his employees die, but he wouldn't let his brother die. To which I would say, are you sure about that? That's not the way I read this guy. Anyway, files reveal that his family visited the island 4 years after Epstein was convicted on prostitution charges, including involving a minor. Well, hey, I'm sure what he says is, hey, they were just minor offenses, right? That's his excuse, I guess. But look, he was a next door neighbor. They go over and he says, yeah, I met him once only, right? And we said, this guy's really creepy. I'm not going to let my wife around him. Then you find out, that was his story. Then you find out when the documents come out that he not only went back to his island and took his wife and his kids, but then he does business deals with Epstein as well. We see all that in there. So again, he's spinning all of this stuff. And you have Comer saying, isn't it great? Look at our transparency here. How many times would you have somebody bring in a cabinet secretary to testify? Never see that happening before. To which I would respond, well, we didn't have these kind of corrupt cabinet secretaries to start with in the past, maybe. There's two ways you can look at that. It wasn't necessary in a lot of administrations to bring in the kinds of people that Trump has hired. Another Democrat, Ansari from Arizona, accused Lutnik of being a pathological liar who is enabling the most egregious cover-up in American history. The level of lies that are taking place inside that room without video is unbelievable, and it's part of this egregious cover-up. Well, he was part of another egregious cover-up on 9/11. I recommend every single American, when this interview is released, read the document in full. And so one person commented, after what we've seen so far in this transcribed interview, I feel very comfortable saying that Howard Lutnik is a pathological liar who is enabling this egregious cover-up. But we haven't seen it. They haven't released it to the public. So this is a member of Congress who I guess was not in there on that committee hearing, who got an early copy of the transcription. Just doesn't do it justice, I'm sure. Another Democrat, this one from Virginia, and I don't know how to pronounce this man or woman's name. I can't tell from first name, male or female. It's like Suhas Subramanyam or something.
That's a classic American family name. Come on, right. We've all grown up next to a Subramanyam,
and you got to keep up with them too. You got to keep up with the Subramanyams.
I remember thinking to myself, those Subramanyams, good, hardworking American stock.
Yeah, they're doing better than us Americans. We're just failures. Bring in some more of those H-1B Subramanyams. Whoever this is was left dumbfounded by Lutnik's testimony. Went so far as calling for the secretary to resign. Yeah, I'm sure that'll happen. Anyway, he said, that was absolutely mind-boggling what we just heard in the room. He was evasive, nervous, dishonest. He would not admit to lying. He said he was never in the room with Jeffrey Epstein ever again after the first time he met him, yet he then admitted that he was in the room with Jeffrey Epstein. I had to ask him whether he and I were in the same room because I couldn't understand what his meaning of we were in the room together, same room together, what that really meant, right? This is the level of it. Several of them have pointed out. Yeah, he's playing games with the word we and I. Of course, that's what Bill Clinton did, right? Remember that? So again, what is the meaning of is the full transcript of Lutnik's hearing had not yet been published as of the time this article went to, as of last night. Meanwhile, as one headline points out, Ro Khanna simply exploded on him in anger. He said it was contortions, lies, no acknowledgement that he misled the American public. Is he talking about Lutnik's Epstein testimony, or is he talking about Trump's war testimony, war tweets and all the rest of the stuff? I think there's going to be an epic book written about what bad leadership looks like when they talk about Donald Trump and how you just throw stuff out off the top of your head. You don't shoot from the hip, you shoot from the lip on social media. You're constantly flip-flopping back and forth, and maybe there is a real purpose to that. Somebody is making a ton of money off of this stuff. So, again, that's what politicians do, but this one has set all new levels of it. He was trying to define I as if saying that what he really meant is that he would not see Epstein alone, but was totally fine with having his wife and kids see him. He originally said that Epstein engaged in blackmail and recorded videotapes. Now he's saying, well, I was wrong. He was just speculating, and Epstein actually didn't engage in blackmailing. Did someone tell him to say that? I've not seen anywhere that Epstein never engaged in blackmail. Why is it that Howard Lutnik...
Said like someone being blackmailed would say. Blackmail material? I don't know anything about that, as he sweats profusely.
Yeah, and of course he had no connection with Mossad either. We just forget about all of that. That really didn't happen.
Was there a little red dot that was moving from his head to his heart back and forth a little bit as he talked?
Yeah, it's just amazing. You know, they like to sell this idea that there was no connection to Mossad, and yet when you look at Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, this guy was like a triple agent spy. I mean, he was spying for everybody against everybody else. He's spying for the British, the Russians, Mossad, all, you know, and informing on everybody else. He had absolutely no allegiance to anybody apparently except Mossad, because when he died, Mossad honored him with a special burial and all the rest of the stuff. So, I mean, you know, he was their guy, but he was presenting himself as an agent to other countries at the same time. So he said, I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or even philanthropy. He called him a disgusting person. But then we find out that later on, even after Epstein was convicted, as we point out, because of the documents, that he was connected to him both socially and financially for business, and did that business at the island. So again, I guess maybe he could say, hey, I was with him at the island. I'm not in the room with him. I mean, we're out there on the island. We're doing whatever you do on that island. Just
typical island things.
So yeah, James Comer says, well, in the lead up to this, he goes on Fox News and he's got an interview there, and he says, well, you know, Lutnik wasn't 100% truthful. Wasn't 100%. In other words, he told some lies, but he can't say that, right? This is part of the Trump GOP guarding our pedophiles cover-up. And Thomas Massey went on with Tucker Carlson and talked about the extent to which this is really the pressure campaign that was put on members of Congress to not sign this discharge petition.
For taking on those threats, Lauren Boebert, they took her over to the Situation Room, right? Like, this is where, if they're trying to kill or capture Osama bin Laden, this is where they are at the White House. They took her into the Situation Room and tried to whip her into taking her name off of the discharge petition.
Over Epstein.
Over Epstein, yep. And then the president vetoed a bill that would have brought water to a large portion of Colorado. Like,
over Epstein.
Over Epstein. And this isn't even, at this point, it's not just about Lauren Boebert. Why are people in Colorado deprived of water? Because their representative wants to expose a sex trafficking ring.
I mean, none of this makes any sense at all.
Well, it does. If you look at the tariffs, I mean, why should we all be punished because Trump is angry at some politician in another country? And so he's going to bust the supply lines for a lot of essential materials, even for American manufacturers, okay? But when you look at this, just a reminder, Thomas Massey's election is coming up in just a couple of weeks, and his opponent, handpicked by Trump and Trump's donor-owner class, AIPAC, his opponent, Ed Gallerine, has gotten $10 million, $9.8 million from Israel and Israeli billionaires. Massey hasn't gotten a cent. This is an opportunity for us to push back against this takeover of our government by a foreign government that is hell-bent on ripping us off and putting us into wars. Again, you have the ADL is out there demanding $1 billion for protection.
We helped secure a $30 million increase for the nonprofit security grant program for the fiscal year 2026. That funding is critical. It supports the security cameras outside of your synagogue. the trained guard,
Taxpayers pay for that.
ACC door, the reinforced entrance at your day school. But we're not
Taxpayers
done.
pay for that.
Right now, we are calling on Congress to fund the program at $1 billion because demand continues to outpace the funding, leaving thousands of applicants without the support that they need. Now, you heard mention of buffer zone legislation in New York City and a push for a federal version. The Sacred Act would establish a 100-foot safe access zone around houses of worship nationwide, protecting people for the right to pray without being blocked, harassed, or intimidated.
Laws will never protect people.
We're urging Congress to pass it now.
And he got $300 million for synagogues, not a penny for churches' security.
Has filed shareholder proposals pushing for accountability on anti-Semitism and hate at major platforms like Meta, and has already drawn significant investor support.
To destroy free speech.
Anti-Semitism carries consequences in the boardroom too, and we intend to make that case clearly.
So they can boycott corporations, but you better not boycott Israel, okay? Then you're in big trouble with these guys. I'm disgusted with the double standard. I am disgusted with how they steal money from us and then try to destroy parts of our law and constitution that protect our God-given rights. Look, I oppose the Sacred Act that they have, just like I oppose the FACE Act. The FACE Act was set up for free access to abortion clinics. And then they put a little rider in there and said, oh, by the way, we'll protect you or do something about it if somebody harasses you at a place of worship. And so then you got the people that are affiliated with Pete Hegseth and Doug Wilson, when they get their worship service disrupted by Don Lemon, they want that enforced. Look, we don't want to be a part of this. As far as I look at this, it's very much like homeschoolers who want to take money from the state. It's like, don't you realize where that leads? And I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see the government coming in and fortifying churches and that type of thing. Certainly, you can do your own security, and you should do your own security, but that's not their way. Their way is to get hundreds of millions, and now they want $1 billion to have all kinds of hardened entrances to their synagogues and all the rest of the stuff, and they want laws all over the place. They want to shut down free speech, free exercise of religion and what people's opinions are. Look, I have nothing but contempt for what these Zionists are doing. It's just amazing. Every day you see how they are stealing more money from us and then stealing our God-given rights as well, or attempting to. So, again, Fox News is bragging about the fact that this guy would even be brought in, that Lutnik would even be brought in. It's pretty extraordinary to bring in a cabinet secretary or something, isn't it? Said Pergram on Fox News to Comer that he was interviewing. Comer says, yeah, and look, I've been on the oversight committee for 10 years. There's never been a chairman bring in cabinet secretaries of their own party. Maybe it's because we've never seen this kind of level of open corruption before. Not even in the district of criminals. So let's talk about this insider trading thing. While you've got Lutnik there, maybe you should ask him about the insider trading since he's a market guy that's there. Who's doing this? And what's happening with this? Again, another one of these on the so-called war news, which turns out to not be news at all. It's just Trump who is spinning and turning and spinning and turning one lie after the other. And so it was on Wednesday early in the morning, there was a $920 million bet placed on crude oil shorts, just an hour before a fake report that a peace deal was close. You had at 3:40 a.m., that's the other thing that's very suspicious about this. The markets are closed, but somebody is able to get in there without any news happening. At 3:40 in the morning, they go in and place a $920 million bet. 1 hour and 10 minutes later, at 4:50 a.m., Axios breaks the story. And the story was that there was a one-page memo of understanding. I was going to talk about this yesterday. I mentioned it briefly with Gerald Salenti, but this is a memo of understanding. So we've just got a couple of simple little things here, and that's going to be the basis of our of our peace agreement. And I was going to say when we didn't get into it with Gerald, but I've seen what this administration did with a memo of understanding in Panama, and you better get that in both English and Farsi. Because it has been something of a farce, the way they have conducted this. When they did a MOU with Panama, there was one version of it in Spanish, the native language there in Panama. And then there was another version in English that was different. And so they gave the Spanish memo of understanding to the Panamanian newspapers. They published it. And then somebody noticed that there was, on the White House website, there was an English version that was completely different. And so the papers in Panama did a report about that. And they took that memo down, and they still haven't put it back up. So yeah, two different languages will give you two different versions of what they understand it to be. So everything about this, folks, is rigged. Everything about it is corrupt. In the wee hours of the morning, nearly $1 billion bet placed 1 hour before a story breaks, which in and of itself is false as well. And so then somebody asked Trump about this insider trading stuff. And he has the nerve to say this.
He bet against his team. That would be no good, but he bet on his own team. I'll look into it, yeah.
There are also bets that are being placed as well on the Iran conflict, too, and there have been some trackings where people suspect that there's insider trading happening on these prediction markets around the war. Are you concerned?
Well, the whole world, unfortunately, has become somewhat of a casino.
And he's bankrupting the whole world, like his casinos.
The world and Europe and every place they're doing these betting things. I was never much in favor of it. I don't like it conceptually, but
he got burned on bets.
No, I think that I'm not happy with any of that stuff. But they have all these different sites. They have predictive markets. It's a crazy world. It's a much different world than it was. Please.
Hey, it's not me. It's Polymarket, right? Well, it's insider trading that people in and around you are working on here. But no, there's no corruption to see. Don't worry about that. It's all 4D chess. Meanwhile, you have the head of Trump's FHA, Bill Pulte. His family owned Pulte Homes, so he gets in the FHA area. Anyway, he is the one who did the deep dive on Trump's political enemies. Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve, because he didn't like her opposition to him wanting to lower rates, and then going after Letitia James. And I think, Letitia James is a corrupt state attorney general, no question about it. And I really don't like Letitia James. I've seen her threaten people over minor things, very politicized. And she was the one that I blame as much as anybody for getting Trump elected, because it was her over-the-top lawfare persecution that I think helped him so much in the primaries. But
I'm
nevertheless,
pretty sure she's the one that got VDARE shut down as well.
Yes, and she came after InfoWars because they were talking about silver being protective against a lot of different things, and it is. And rather than fight that, Alex just surrendered and removed all the silver products. I understand.
And then I think shuffled them over to be under a different umbrella and went back to selling them at some point, if memory serves.
I don't know if they started selling them again or not, because I've had people contact me and say, yeah, where can I get some of this stuff? Because I used to use the silver toothpaste and some of these other things. I don't know if they're selling it now or not. Maybe now with this whole new operation, maybe they're doing it. I don't know. And nevertheless, she's a crook. She politically intimidates people that she doesn't like. And yet Trump is in going after her has basically adopted the typical tool of tyrants. It was either Stalin. It's attributed to either Stalin or his chief of secret police. The phrase, "Bring me the man, I'll find the crime," and that's what they're doing with this. And how are they doing it? They're doing it with artificial intelligence. I find this to be a very disturbing precedent that is happening here. If you can go back and you got somebody that you want to punish, you go back and you look throughout everything in their life, and you find they said they were going to take out this mortgage for their own personal use, and yet they didn't live there. They put a relative there or something like that. And so we're going to call it rental property. and we're going to go after them for criminal charges. I'm sorry, but I have a problem with that use of AI, and we've seen it with Doge as well. They've been storing information forever about each and every one of us. Now, with artificial intelligence, they can go back and look throughout all this information. They can now data mine it. They can collate it. They can find the crime if you're somebody they don't like. So anyway, he goes on with CNBC. They ask him if this is political. Oh, no, it's not from my perspective. It's not political at all. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat to me, or if you're a Fed governor or whatever. If you commit mortgage fraud, we're going to refer it for a crime. And that's what we did with the Lisa Cook case. That is not what is happening here. And again, I don't think that the Federal Reserve should be independent. I don't like the Federal Reserve at all. And I don't think the people that work there need to be held to a different standard, which is what they're saying here. But I'm really concerned about the fact that any bureaucrat can go through and audit somebody to find the crime. Trump has sought to oust her for nearly a year, demanding that she resign over the mortgage fraud allegations that were brought by Pulte, before then trying to fire her. She refused to resign. So then he said, okay, well, then I'll fire you. She then sued Trump, claiming that his administration had no cause to dismiss her. In January, the Supreme Court ruled and paused her removal. Trump has asked the Supreme Court to stay an appeals ruling that she can keep her job, which is supposed to be independent from the executive branch and from political interference. Again, just more evidence of corruption, of mafia-like vendettas. This is what we see from the Trump administration. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and
we actually have quite a few comments here before we go.
Okay.
Want to start with...
Tony's going to be joining us today. I don't know. Have you connected with Tony yet?
I have not connected with him yet, but I have sent the info. I want to say thank you to Dougalug. He says, happy belated birthday, David. Thank you for a great podcast.
Well,
so,
thank you.
Thank you very much, Dougalug. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
And we also have Wally Walrus. BB still has Epstein's blackmail material on Trump. I believe it.
I do too. Yeah, that's what the real purpose was about all this stuff.
I want to say thank you to North American House Hippo as well. He was very kind and generous. He says, Lucky Lutnik sounds like a guy who should be running an easy credit used car lot in downtown Brooklyn and running commercials late at night on New York One and WPIX. Ask Karen if you need a translation.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, we were talking about the real estate, I don't know what they call them, conventions or whatever. They have events where people can go in and they can buy stolen land that Israel has stolen from people in Palestine. So they have this, like I said, it's really kind of funny. It's like someone watches that at the back of your trunk. Hey, look, I stole this, and now I'm going to sell it to fellow Jews. They're going to rip off. So it's amazing. We see that kind of stuff all the time in New York, don't we?
We also have North American House Hippo again, and I want to say thank you again. Very generous. One of the many places I lived as a boy was Canada's Northwest Territories. When I was 5, my dad told me when you see a moose dying in the woods, that's when it is at its most dangerous.
Yeah. Well,
I've never seen a moose dying in the woods. I've only very rarely seen moose at all.
Well, speaking of moose, I got to say, I think that Trump's cabinet all are alumni of What's the Matter You? They're full of bullwinkle as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Do you have any more? Or is that it?
Yes, one more from North American House Hippo as well. And he says, one of the many places I lived as a boy was, I already read that one. I guess we don't have any more, and I'm just being silly. But thank you, North American House Hippo.
All right. Yes, thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break, folks, and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
listening to The David Knight Show.
APS Radio delivers multiple channels of music right to your mobile device. Get the APS Radio app today and listen wherever you go.
I just want to say before we continue, and I'm way overdue in thanking people who helped us a week ago when we had the matching funds. We had Mary Ellen Moore who provided matching funds, and we had a lot of people who wished me happy birthday, as well as jumped in at the very end of the month and got us up to a full gas tank. And I did not thank the people who contributed on Zelle. We mentioned the ones who contributed on Rumble and other live formats, but let me just read those names real quickly here and thank them for it was very generous and made a big difference in the month. We have George S., Kellyanne M., Brandon M., Kimberly M., Gregory C., Craig M., Michael P., Charles D., Mark Y., Janice W. And then we also had some people who contributed on Cash App, and we had some big contributors on Cash App. We had Braxton, we had Dave Banks, we had Handy and Randy, two separate people, even though they rhyme together. And Francisco C., thank you so much. I appreciate all of your support, and it made a huge difference. And thank you for all of the birthday wishes. We had so many of them. I won't go through and read them all, but I really do appreciate all the birthday wishes because it was the last day of the month and my birthday as well. So thank you again.
Yes, thank you all very much. And I did miss part of the comment from North American House Hippo. Of course, it was talking about how dangerous a moose is. When it's dying, it says the U.S. government is that moose. It is dying. It is thrashing around. It has nothing to lose, and it doesn't care who it takes out before it finally succumbs. Stay 100 meters back.
That's absolutely right. Well, one of the things I mentioned yesterday briefly, and we'll talk about this more when Tony joins us, is the U.S. trade deficit actually grew. It was supposed to go the other direction, wasn't it, with the tariffs? And yet it's just another example of how Trump's policies, even though they were bad in inception, they're even worse in execution. Even when he's got the right idea about a particular policy, the way that he does it so frequently sets up a horrible precedent and keeps it from actually working. And of course, the tariffs are a tax. It's paid by consumers, and you cannot tax your way to prosperity. He's totally blind to the fact that it is deregulation that is needed. They want to go back and look at the tariffs that happened in the 1880s and say, well, that's the basis of our prosperity. No, that is the perspective of a statist Democrat or Republican. But that is not the reality. When you go back and look at the regulatory situation back in the 1880s, people were free to start businesses. They were free to try all kinds of things that you are prohibited from doing now. And so that's the reality. This is not, this is something that happened at the same time, but it's no more related to it than the steam engine, right? You could look at this and say, well, if we only ran everything on steam engines, we'd be doing great like they did in the 1800s. No, they did great in the 1800s because they were free. They were free to develop a steam engine or its successors. But it's not the steam engine that made them great, and it's not the tariffs that made them great either.
I want to let you know that we have Tony ready. He has just joined.
Okay, great. Let's bring Tony on. Thank you for joining us, Tony. And for everybody who doesn't know Tony, you probably know him by now. Tony Arterman of Wise Wolf, and he has set up davidknight.gold that will take you to his website, take you also to where you can find out about and sign up for Wolfpack. Wolfpack is something that's very innovative that Tony did, which allows you to buy gold or silver on a regular basis. You can set up your budget and you can sign up for a particular level. If you want $50, if you want $1,000 or whatever, you can set that up each month and you'll gradually accumulate this to average out your prices rather than saving everything up and making one big purchase at one point, because the price is fluctuating all the time. But that's a great way to start to accumulate gold and silver. Thank you for joining us, Tony.
Great to be with you, David. Good to see you.
We're looking at this. I want to get your take on this. We saw gold go up about 2.8%. I think the spot price went up yesterday, but a lot of people are saying, well, it went up because of the rumors, which apparently I don't know anybody to believe any of these rumors. The rumors are designed for insider trading. I don't think they're actually reflective of anything that's actually real out there. But nevertheless, it does move the markets, and it certainly does. And the markets move, and the price of gold moves. And what moved it, they said, was the fact that they thought that if there was going to be peace, and that would be deflationary. And so that helped gold to go up, which is kind of counterintuitive, the way I look at it. I mean, what do you think in terms of, you look at this stuff and you have to kind of make a guess as to what the short-term movements of gold are going to be. Most of us who are investing in gold, we're looking at this for the long term. And yet, if you look at this, what do you think if they actually came up with some kind of a peace agreement and stopped all this stuff? What do you think? And the price of oil starts to go down. What happened with gold? I mean, gold went up when oil went down, and vice versa. What do you think in terms of what we might be seeing with this? How that might affect gold?
Yeah, oil's down about $8 a barrel from yesterday when I checked, and I think it's a natural flow back and forth from where we are. And we saw at the beginning of the war, gold went to about 5,300 an ounce, and then started to trend downward because, as we've discussed, large entities, countries, central banks dumped a lot of their gold holdings to purchase oil, and a lot of the entities used so gold functioned as money at that point, and they were able to use that liquidity in order to buy crude oil. I think this is going to be a yo-yo back and forth, but I don't think we're going to go back to like the days of $50 a barrel oil anytime soon. I don't know that that's even on the horizon. As a matter of fact, I think this is a preparation for energy lockdowns to stifle growth and to stifle travel. And we've seen the airlines that have imploded because of this, and JetBlue's next on the chopping block after Spirit. I think it's just the ball's just getting started to roll.
Oh, yeah. And it's not just them. Lufthansa had to cancel 1,000 flights for the summer. Yeah.
It's just getting started. And the shock of this, I don't even think has really set in from when oil went to 120. I mean, a lot of that stuff is still not. I was on a show yesterday. They asked, because I've been in the gasoline business since I was a little kid with my family. I understand a little bit about it. And I said, well, there's a lot of lag time between pricing and refinement that happens as well. So, and there's no certainty in this market. So, I mean, you could have temporary gains in gold and temporary gains in oil, and they might go back and forth for a long time. But the trends are all the fundamentals that you and I discussed. The trends are all in there to show that the dollar is constantly being, reprinted, expanded. The money supply expands, which decreases the purchasing power, and that happens to all the currencies in the world right now. So, in the long run, I think the outlook's really good for metals, and honestly for crude oil as well. Even if demand goes down with higher prices, I still think that the price of crude will be higher.
It's the kind of thing where we've had a couple of these memes out there. Taco, Trump always chickens out. They put that out there about the tariffs because of the volatility and the capriciousness about Trump in terms of tariffs. Then they came up with another one, Nacho, not a chance that Hormuz opens. And all that is there, I think, to try to calm down the market, because they do react, just as we saw. This person who put in that nearly $1 billion bet at 3 a.m. in the morning, 1 hour before the story hit, that Trump claimed that, or somebody in the Trump administration claimed that there was going to be a one-page memo of understanding to end all this nonsense with Iran. And that person made about $125 million in that 1 hour. And so people are playing this, and I think we're being played by the Trump administration. But, there's going to be this kind of volatility, this jumpiness. There are people who are manipulating other people with this, and they're reacting to things that Trump says as if there was any credibility to that at all. And that's what's really moving around the price of oil and the price of gold and all the rest of this stuff. And we look at the long-term effects of this. And I don't know if you heard it or not, Tony, but I talked earlier this week. There was an opportunity to reflect on Jeopardy, the game, the TV game. And they talked about some guy who just finished a run of 31 or 32 victories on Jeopardy, and he made $880,000, I think it was. And how much did the very first winner make? She made $345. And that was back in 1964. And she said, yeah, there was a lot more purchasing power back then. A friend of mine and I went to a bunch of Broadway shows and everything. I thought, they mentioned in it, they said, well, that would be worth about $3,000 something today. And I thought, well, what would have happened if she, instead of keeping the currency, what if she had taken that $345 and bought gold at that point in time, because it was fixed at $35 an ounce. Even the market price was like $35.50 an ounce. So it was still, kind of a stable economy in 1964. And it turns out that she would have had $45,000 worth of gold if she had converted that $345 in cash, because that's the long-term effect. And that's the way you got to look at this, not get caught up in all of the rumors and reactions that are happening on Wall Street, and how the people are deliberately trying to manipulate things. I mean, Trump and his regime is a good example of how the market is manipulated with rumors, isn't it?
No. Well, at this point, is there any other trade but insider trading? I mean, can you make money in this market without being a crook? I mean, is there any value in most anything that's traded anymore? And a lot of that is built into the way this system works. And you and I both know there's still millions and millions of dollars that are unclaimed from shorting airline stocks right prior to 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
Connected to Deutsche Bank.
And no investigation of that, right?
Never.
As we pointed out, they're not going to do an investigation. If they caught somebody, the Department of Justice, and this insider trading about all the war news and everything, if they caught somebody, good and well that the Trump Department of Justice is not going to prosecute them. And if by some chance some future administration decide they want to prosecute them, Trump will probably pardon the guilty parties in advance, so that won't happen. So yeah, why not do that, right? They can get away with it. It's just money that's free to take.
Well, he's turned this whole planet into a casino. And if you reverse engineer the price of gold right now, I mean, I think under normal conditions, it wouldn't be near this price. We would have not hit $5,000 an ounce gold in 2025 without this presidency. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen. And I mean, we go back to 2024, gold hit $2,500 an ounce in August. I remember distinctly, and I've traced that price and everything that's happened since then. And it's all about the uncertainty. There is no direction. It's just chaos. And then the tariffs that never happened, caused that whole domino effect of all these bullion houses and banks overseas to start frantically repatriating. And that caused a cascade of failed contracts for all that physical bullion. So a lot of the paper market was exposed there. So this is only the beginning, I think, of the repricing of all commodities, not just gold and silver, but everything based in dollars. And I think this is just, we're reaching a point of no return where it's hard to even associate the dollar with the price anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that we can do that, David. I don't know if we can. You go back to the Jeopardy winner. I mean, a lot of people have done the math, from 1964. If you were getting minimum wage in 1964 and you were getting paid, in silver quarters, you've got $60, $70 worth of purchasing power or more at that time with minimum wage. So that's the difference between earnings when you have a sound dollar, when you have something backed by gold or silver, and when you have a free floating currency. And you can get caught up in the numbers, like, well, the numbers are higher, I made more money. Well, you actually didn't, because the money's been devalued, or your currency's been devalued. So I think this is the fight between oil and gold, which isn't really a fight, but I think the restructuring and repricing is going to go back and forth for a while now, based off of everything that's happened with the closing of the strait.
Yeah, and when you look at this, we're about, I guess, we're 2.5 months into this thing now, and the OPEC oil embargo was 5 months long. And what happened with that was it quadrupled the price of oil, and it never went back down again. And as you point out, this is what they're doing in terms of trying to push us into this controlled society. I talked yesterday, I think it was, Tony, about somebody who was in New Zealand. And New Zealand has come up with a 5-tier rationing system based on your value to the people in government. And guess what? The government is the number one. They're the top feeder. Okay. After them are big businesses, and then after them is infrastructure. Then small businesses come in at number 4, and the consumer is dead last. And this kind of rationing, the person looked at this and said, this is the same kind of contempt for small businesses and consumers, and this merger of the elites, of the big corporations and government that we saw throughout COVID. Looks exactly like that. And they just keep coming back to the same thing. Again, they'll have different MacGuffins, but it's always going back to the same thing. They want a permission society. They want total surveillance. That's why I like physical gold. They want total surveillance, total tracking of everything, and to make all of us poor so they keep all of the money. That's really what is behind all of this stuff.
You're right, and I think the rest of the planet is picking up a bit on this, and the targeting of small business, the targeting of cash, the targeting of anything outside of the digital system, and I think for the first time in a long time, Canada just ran a trade surplus. You know why? It's because 24% of the output was precious metals exports.
Yeah.
Like they ran a trade surplus in a free. This is like United States and Canada, I believe, since NAFTA, have run trade deficits. And so Canada picking up a trade surplus because of the export of precious metals. As a matter of fact,
so Yukon Cornelius is getting into an export business then?
They're in the export. Well, and the gold is going, and a lot of places going eastward, and looking at places like India. As a matter of fact, the premiums, because they're so bottlenecked from imports into India, premiums have skyrocketed for physical because of customs and sorting through everything that's still waiting to be delivered. There's so much demand for physical gold and silver in India. It's literally like breaking the price, we associate with the spot price and a little bit of premium here in the United States. But in India, it's off the charts. And they've repatriated 77% of their gold holdings so far. And a lot of the countries are doing it. Countries all over the world are doing the same thing. They're repatriating the physical. And that's what you have to remember. It's the new structure is based off physical because of the lack of trust. You used to just trust the dollar. The dollar's no longer trusted. It was weaponized. And so they're literally building physical storage facilities across the world to trade in and out of gold.
Yeah.
Hong Kong's doing that. I've talked about that before. I think that's a major move of storage facilities just off the airport outside of Hong Kong for international trade. And that's what the trade's going to be conducted in dollars. And I think we're seeing that right now with the price of gold falling when the price of oil increases, because it's liquidity out the door, and there's a lot of sell-off in gold to buy crude. I think this is flip-flop, but on the long enough timeline, I think the increase in gold is inevitable. I don't think it's going to eat into everything that gold does as far as price moves. But that's what's happening. Gold's functioning as money right now.
Yeah, that's right. And for those reasons, you see some of the banks, as they're looking at predicting the price of gold, you got Bank of America is predicting $6,000 by the end of the year. You got Morgan Stanley that is seeing $5,200 gold by the end of the year. They have been in the past very conservative about what they had put in. So these are the people who are looking at long-term trends that are predicting this kind of stuff. And their long-term trends have historically been very conservative. But the bottom line is, as we point out every week, and as other people have been pointing out, all the fundamentals that drove gold up so much in the last couple of years are not only still there, but they're much stronger than they were before.
That's exactly right. And they're only getting stronger. Because we have no certainty, and you have to ask yourself, what is the plan here? Like a lot of people are applauding Trump for the supposed reopening of the strait. Well, you closed it in the first place. It's not an accomplishment. Anybody that knew anything about geopolitics, and I've told this story on my show. My dad was talking to me about consequences of striking Iran in the 90s. I was a kid, I was a teenager, and he was talking to me. He was like, well, they would close the Strait of Hormuz. I remember that, in 1997. And I was thinking, well, this is what's always been understood that was going to happen if you make that sort of strike. And of course, we did. That happened. So it seems to me that was already known. And if you wanted to, oil had been stagnant for so long, in the $50-$60 range. So I don't think we're going to get back to that level. I think it's been repriced, just like the OPEC embargo. And once there's a repricing, does it come down? I mean, it's historically, have we ever seen that where there's a return to a cheap oil? I still don't see it right now.
No, it was like $3 a barrel, and then it went to $12 a barrel, a factor of 4, and it just keeps going up from there, doesn't it? And of course, as you point out, everybody knew that was going to happen with the Strait of Hormuz, including the people who were in Trump's inner circle, but they didn't have the spine to stand up and say that to him. And when he pushed back a little bit, they just set back down again and said, okay, fine, we'll let you do it. Or, let you do it. He's going to do it, whatever he wants to do.
These are World Economic Forum sympathizing folks. These are globalist people. And as I heard a report the other day, I thought was really interesting. We haven't really dug into the new Fed chair. We haven't really dug into Warsh. It hasn't come out in the Warsh yet. I know you made that joke, but it is interesting that his father is a major donor, like a billionaire donor, and then he's also had I think allegedly been on the Epstein guest list. There's other stuff that's been associated with him. And
well, look, it's Besant. Scott Besant was Soros's right-hand man when they broke the Bank of England. And if it was a Democrat that had put in a Soros guy as Treasury Secretary, you can imagine everybody would be having a fit. But when Trump does it, it's okay. I'm sure this guy has seen the light, and he's no longer like that at all, right? And so, of course, this Warsh guy, like I said, I haven't done a deep dive on his background. All I know about him is that his wife is coming from this Estee Lauder makeup fortune. And I said, yeah, they're trying to put lipstick on the pig of the Federal Reserve. That's what they're doing with this thing. But
it's interesting. There's chaos inside the Federal Reserve now. And, Jerome Powell's decided not to leave. He's going to stay. He's got a seat there on the board. He's a Fed governor. And he's going to stay until, I think, August of 2028. So he decided not to leave entirely. So his vote counts, I guess, if you think that works like a democracy. But I mean, there's some dissent in there. It's not just all about, there's some people that want rate hikes. There's people that want to stay where they are. And there's people like, I think, again, the policy of Trump is a weaker dollar. They need to have that big print. And so that's rate, not just quantitative easing, as you've mentioned a couple of days ago. You're talking about they're already doing quantitative easing, they're already doing QE.
Yeah,
but the other side of that is the lowering of interest rates, which is going to massively expand the money supply, and that's the goal of the Trump administration. It has been. That's just a clear policy that they've made. We want a weaker dollar.
He's not going to do anything to try to stop the budget deficit. I mean, again, the trade deficit is his obsession. You never hear him or Mike Johnson or any of these people talk about the budget deficit. Only Thomas Massey talks about that. And he tries to draw as much attention to it as possible. The freshman congressman who came in, he handed them his lapel thing that counts up what the deficit is. But nobody else cares about that. And so Trump's concern is to make sure that he can just pay the interest on this thing. And that's why he wants the interest rates lowered, because it makes a huge difference to the budget of the federal government. If interest rates go up much, I mean, it's going to suck up all the money that the federal government has just to pay the interest on the debt. So he's obsessed with getting that down, but he's not going to make the fundamental changes that need to be made, and neither is Congress.
In 1963, the debt to GDP ratio for the United States was 31%. It's 100% now, and climbing. We've had higher. World War II is an exception. So a worldwide war, and you had over 100% debt to GDP. But the debt of the U.S. was like $268 billion or something. It was quaint. I mean, this is the numbers that we're dealing with now,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that, this isn't going to be, there's not going to be a post-war boom. This isn't like the end of World War II. There's not a new Bretton Woods in our favor.
Mm-hmm.
And the lack of purchasing of treasuries and bonds and other things that prop up the dollar are on their way out. So the deficit, I know Dick Cheney said deficits don't matter. They absolutely do, because it has to do with the strength of the dollar, or the trust factor in the dollar, the money velocity. How much is it used? That's the reason we've been able to float as long as we have. And this is what we've been doing. We haven't been gaining wealth. We've been floating. Anybody that knows anything about business, especially, I've been in the gasoline business, and contracts and float, and you can float for a while and it makes it look like you have money, but you really don't. You're losing. The more that you increase the deficit, the more you increase the money supply, the faster that you're going to go out of business. And then the United States will continue to print its way out. So what does that mean, David? It means that commodities will be repriced based off the loss of purchasing power in the dollar.
Yeah.
And that's just inevitable. So you don't have to be, it doesn't take special skills to figure out that, 2 years from now, gold and silver are going to look better than they do today. This isn't 1980.
That's right.
Right? There's no more room. The reason that they were able to bring down the prices of metals in 1980 at $800 an ounce for gold and $52 an ounce for silver is because there was still lots of room to manipulate the market. The debt was only about, a little over $1 trillion for the U.S. at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we're at 37, 38 trillion.
Yeah. Well, I think it's 39. I looked at it, and it's like the rate that it was going, supposed to be sometime in September. I think they're going to hit 40 trillion, unless Trump and Hegseth and these people can do things like boost the defense spending. The only thing they're complaining about is not the level of spending for defense. They're just complaining about the fact that the companies can't make the bombs fast enough that they're blowing up. This whole federal government is going to be hoisted by its own petard, blown up by its own bomb. When you look at it, I calculated what the Pentagon's budget, if they get their $1.5 trillion, again, they hit a record budget of $1 trillion, which is more than the next 8 countries combined that spend on defense, quote unquote defense. Although it's not defense, it's on offense is what we're using it for. But anyway, more than the next 8 countries combined. As soon as they hit that record, we need to increase that by another 50%. So what does it cost the average American household? I looked up the number of households in the U.S. It's over $11,000 per household that we're paying just for the Pentagon nonsense, just to create wars, to kill people, to create instability, global instability, and to put our own lives at risk, really, because we're creating a long list of enemies who would like to attack us, and they will find some way to do it.
Yeah, we're just out there looking for a war.
Yeah.
And that's built into this budget. As a matter of fact, the numbers you just quoted were true when it was $750 billion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That spending more than 8, what is it, the next 8 countries combined.
Yeah.
That was true. So we're going to double that.
I know. It's crazy.
That's the severity. And the damage that does to our monetary system when you just continue to create more and more liabilities, and then you create new currency to cover those liabilities. Does that end well? I mean, mathematics doesn't math eventually catches up. I don't think math cares about your intentions or your political philosophies or your ideology. Math just is, and it will eventually catch up with you. And
even if you own a casino, it'll catch up with you, doesn't it?
Well, that's casino strategy always favors the house.
Except when it's Trump's house. It's crazy. Speaking of his strategy and lack of it, or whatever, lack of understanding, I think people say, well, is this deliberate sabotage or is it just stupidity? There was one aspect of this, I think, argues for the stupidity side of it. When he starts pulling in troops from Germany, and look, I'm all for that. I don't want to see an American empire, but he does. He does want to see an American empire. And the troops in Germany are not there to protect Germany as much as they are to project American power throughout Europe, throughout the Middle East, and other places like that. And so when he pulls the troops from Germany as a protest against Germany, What he's really doing is undermining his own dreams of empire. That's why I'm saying none of this stuff makes any sense. Even if you look at it from his perspective, it doesn't make any sense.
I go back to his first administration, and this is which is completely different, and you know that. I mean, there was even a semblance of we don't want this liberal New World Order. I remember there was that story that I read on my show back in 2019 where he was pulled into a side office with General Mattis and a few other of the Joint Chiefs and other people that were trying to explain to him the rationality why we have troops in Germany and why we have in the Pacific realm and all this that he was talking about bringing back. Like these treaties aren't, this is something that he voiced, that NATO was obsolete and it costs them too much money, they're not paying their fair share, we should bring people home. You don't really hear that much. This is a protest. I think it's personal, or with the Germans. But he's not going to reallocate those troops to the United States. No. He's not going to protect our southern border or do something that would be for the national security of Americans. It's going to still protect the empire. They'll be reallocated somewhere else, probably redirected, as you mentioned, to the Middle East, which is our focus always because of our friends there on Capitol Hill with AIPAC.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I got a question here for you, Tony. This is from Hatchcar61. Has Tony heard about two major silver refiners buying silver directly from miners? Seems there's a glut of 90% silver. Wonder if this is why. What do you know about that? Have you heard about that?
There's a lot happening. I haven't heard that direct story, but I know that there are some miners that are connecting with the refiners and being able to put out new, physical bullion retail. So I do know that's happening. One of the unfortunate consequences of the price of silver going parabolic and going up to $126 an ounce 90 days ago or 120 days ago was the refiners got overwhelmed. And as a matter of fact, I had to hold on to sterling that I bought. Sterling silver was the last thing that I was still buying, even if I couldn't melt it. And finally, I had to give up buying sterling for a little while. I'm buying it again because there was so few refiners that would even take silver at all. So I think they finally caught up and the price stabilized a bit. There's going to be silver is back online as a monetary metal. As a matter of fact, it was just something I was talking about the other day. A lot of people, because they tried to sell, were really frustrated with silver because they couldn't get, close to spot quickly when the price hit over $100 an ounce. It's because everybody was trying to sell at once. I think a lot of those systems have been worked out. And so as silver continues to become more and more, not just an industrial metal, not just something used for medical and other things, but as a monetary metal again, a lot of those refining outlets and wholesalers and other things will be, I think, a lot better equipped in the next year to two to deal with the influx of people using it to liquidate in and out of the market.
And you're not seeing that with gold in terms of, because of all the industrial uses of silver, I guess. You're not seeing that as much with gold. I mean, there are industrial uses of gold, but not as much as with silver. And a lot of people have looked at this and said, there's that new design for a battery. I forget who did it. Maybe it was Hyundai or something. But instead of using lithium, they had a design for silver, which had a lot of advantages over lithium in terms of not being as volatile for a fire. It had, I think, a lot faster charging rates and things like that. But of course, it was a lot more expensive. But people said if they start to move in this direction, that's going to be a massive use of silver. So that's the other part of the equation, I guess, with silver.
Yeah, silver is the most thermoconductive metal on Earth. And so it's used in solar and batteries and other things. It will continue to, I think, be a mainstay for its industrial use. And the point I was trying to make with the gold or the golden versus silver on refining is because gold has been a monetary contract. A lot of times when I sell to a refiner, that gold has been pre-sold. So I'd sell to the refiner. It's been pre-sold. It's going to go up the chain to probably a central bank or a large buyer. and those contracts would get snatched up because that's what central banks do. I see a movement in the future where they're also using silver. We noted in the last few years, Russia put silver as a strategic reserve asset. India added it as an asset where you could borrow against it for home loans and other things and business loans. China's stockpiling silver. I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see silver used alongside gold as a storage of monetary use. So I think they'll be added to the balance sheets of not only multinationals, but also countries. And that will change the nature of how silver is, bought and sold. So we weren't ready for the prices that hit in the last, 6 months. It was just the system wasn't ready, but I do believe with between miners, getting with refiners and wholesalers and trying to get physical product made, I think it will really increase the ability for everyday folks to get in and out of that market easy.
Well, that's great. Yeah, you weathered the storm that came through here. Now we're kind of in, I guess, the eye of the storm. I think there's another wave that's going to be hitting us in the future. Maybe not like you point out, maybe people have learned some things that might help to mitigate that, but I think it's going to pick back up again. I think that everything that Trump is doing is really hurting us economically. It's we can all see it in what has happened to our lifestyle, and but I think it's going to pick up again, and I think it's a good hedge that we all need to have as individuals. What is happening at Wise Wealth that you can tell us about?
Well, we're still recovering from all of that. I mean, it's funny because yesterday I had my crew, my ladies here in Branson. I said, let's go through. We had all the stuff in the cabinets, and a lot of that stuff I, paid over $100 for. There was things that I said, let's just liquidate all that we can. And we went through a lot of stuff that I can't put into Wolfpack, and it was an all day project yesterday, but I just got rid of that stuff, and I said, let's put this on the balance sheets because we need to be able to buy more product. And I was able to pass on yesterday. If you're a Wolfpack member, you get silver dollars or something that we've been putting in most all of the packages. So the stuff that was made prior to 1935, so Morgan dollars and peace dollars, a lot of them are collectibles. We pass those collectibles on to people because we don't have time to sort through them. So a lot of times you get way more than the silver value. So just looking for little things like that. We know that there's, even with the prices and things have calmed down, I'm always vigilant on actually getting supply. I think that it's so volatile, David. I mean, right now. I mean, you can get stuff, but it's never really fully recovered from 2020. This isn't the same world when I started my business. It's not the same sort of supply chain. So I'm always looking at creative ways to do that, and it's surviving the price fluctuations, and I'm glad that we did. I don't. It's not over. It's not over at all.
It's the eye of the storm. That's right.
You're exactly right. We're in the eye of the storm.
Yeah, and so just to clarify, when you're talking about that, putting in some of those older coins, you're putting in those coins at the valuing them at their weight in terms of their value as just the weight of silver, not putting in a premium for the numismatic stuff. So that's what you're talking about. People might
exactly right.
Yeah, might actually get more from that. Well, that's great. I love what you do, and especially the Wolfpack thing is very unique. And again, people can buy in any quantity. They can put in a large order. They can set things up for their IRA, and you work with companies in terms of people setting this up as an IRA. You don't actually manage the storage, but you work with companies that do, and so people can set up a metal, gold and silver IRA, and that's always a very useful thing to do as well.
Always physical too. Like, we don't deal in paper. None of what my business conducts is done in paper. It's all physical metals, and I think the IRAs are, I think, a great way to hedge against having your savings in the market. like we talked about earlier in the show, just the insider trading. Like, do you trust these people? Like, what is the valuations of these companies anymore? I mean, is it based off profit? Is it based off earnings? I don't know, but there's going to be the manipulation in the paper and the standard market. I think.
And to clarify what you're talking about, you're really talking about, when we say paper gold and paper silver, we're talking about ETFs and things that you can trade on Wall Street, like GLD and SLV, that type of thing. That's what we're talking about with paper. You do have, and I think they're great, the silver and gold certificates. I like that a lot. It's part of the Wolfpack that goes out from time to time.
The gold back. Those are great.
Yeah, that's good. And that's not paper. That's actual physical gold and physical silver that is woven into this thing that looks like a paper note that is there. So, yeah, it's great to have that option for people. And it's one of the few things that we can do to prepare against these types of things that we see happening out there. Your program's coming up right after this one today. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The Arterburn radio transmission will be live here at 11 a.m. Central Time, and you can find me over on Rumble on the America Unplugged channel or on my X account at Tony Arterburn. That's great.
That's great. Yeah, and we had you were traveling last week, and you had the show goes on even when you're traveling. You had guest host and.
Thanks to Jason Barker. Yeah,
that's right.
Really, I didn't. This was one of my goals this year. It's like I need to not have a show that's a best of. It's only one show. I used to do 5 shows a week, but I can't anymore. It's just too much. So the Thursday, I always look forward to it. And Jason and Ashley did a great job showing up and helping me keep that stream live. So thanks to them.
That's great. That's great. Well, again, everybody can catch Tony's show right after this one ends. And thank you so much for joining us, Tony. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for supporting the program. We really do appreciate it. You have been a key supporter for this program.
Real quickly before we go, AP Rumble Seat just dropped a comment and said, does Tony also have a blog to help educate people on his site?
Working on it. We've got a new the website for Wolfpack is being redesigned, and we're continually to make updates on that. And the podcast, I'm going to bring back the Wise Wolf Gold and Crypto show. That is coming soon, within the next month or two, and we'll have that in along with some blog posts and other things that we'll talk about some really talk about just gold, silver content and the education part. I'm going to start doing that again.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Tony. Appreciate you coming on. And always very interesting to talk to you. You always have a wealth of information and a way for people to build their wealth as well. Thank you so much. Tony Arterburn at Wise Wolf Gold. And of course, you can get there through davidknight.gold. We'll be right back, folks.
Making sense common again. You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Elvis.
Ladies and gentlemen, The Beatles.
And the sweet sounds of Motown. Find them on the Oldies channel at apsradio.com.
Well, we got a comment here from North American House Hippo. Did you want to read that, Travis? You want me to?
Sure.
Yeah.
North American House Hippo says, when I was 19 in 1989, I got a job with a stockbroker. A broker in my office was interviewed on the news and told retail investors to get out now while they still can. He was fired the next morning.
That's right. It's about what's profitable for them, not necessarily for you. I like the comment about brokers. I think it was actually from Woody Allen. I have to give him credit for that. He said they call them brokers because after you do business with them, you're a broker than you were before.
There's this bit from The Simpsons where I believe I don't watch The Simpsons. I've seen like maybe a grand total of 4 episodes, so you'll have to bear with me. But Bart has some money, he takes it into the bank, and it's like, oh, well, let's invest it. And we do a little thing here, and it's gone.
I've seen that clip as well, yeah. What do you mean? And it's gone. That's right. That's the way it works. Well, it's also, when we look at food, there was this interesting headline from Market Watch. They said the food inflation crisis will soon be the only thing that investors are talking about. And when you stop and think about this, again, when we look at the massive effects of the stupidity that Trump is involved in and how it affects so many different things, it's not just the value-added tax and the stacking up of the cost of fuel. That's bad enough. But it's the direct costs and things like fertilizer and stuff like that that's being shut down. And I saw this little AI clip that somebody put together, consumers' reaction to Donald Trump, which I thought was really appropriate in terms of what is going to be happening with food inflation and a lot of other things.
Son, see how this man is making us great again.
He's there in a gold suit.
$5.99 a gallon. Are we great yet? Take that. How's that for greatness? $500 for medications? Are we great again?
Farm's a disaster, total failure, sad. But with me in charge, we'll make American dirt great again. Just get out of the way.
That's a shame you have to sell your farm. Remember, I've always had your back 100%.
Trump, what are you going to do about high fuel prices? We're working on it. And this is what I think of your Make America Great Again.
Yeah, he's got our back, doesn't he? And he's stabbing it repeatedly. We've been shivved in the back by this guy so many times, you don't even feel it anymore, I guess, when it happens. But
also, I was informed that apparently it's not a Simpsons clip, it's a South Park clip, which is another show I haven't watched. So
okay. Yeah,
it's easy for me to forget which one when I don't know either.
It goes in that part of the brain that stores information about shows that you don't watch.
Sorry, my brain is totally filled up with Pokemon facts. I don't have room for South Park or The Simpsons.
Well, here is a heads up for people, just so that you know, they don't want food grown, and if it's going to be grown, they got to get it with glyphosate and all the rest of the stuff. And of course, it's big agricultural interests that are pushing the Republican Party and Trump to give legal immunity to Monsanto for the cancer that they're causing with glyphosate. It's been proven over and over again in court. So their response is, well, we're going to give them legal immunity because it doesn't matter to them if the food is poisonous. They want to sell you that Soylent Green because that gives them the green stuff, the cash, right? All they care about is output. They don't care about quality or safety with any of this stuff. And so along those lines, just would put in a heads up here. I think this guy is a butcher, and he's at Costco because people told him that Costco is selling lab meat. Here's how they label it, by the way.
I had customers come in here telling me how cheap the prices are right now at Costco on meats. I decided to go to Costco myself, and I wanted to take a look at what was going on. When I went in there, walked across the meat department, rib steaks were $8 a pound. That's less than I pay to serve my customers. When I looked at the label closely, it says cell cultivated. I had zero idea what the hell that meant. Got in the car when I left Costco and looked it up. Cell cultivated means lab grown. They are selling lab grown meat at Costco now. Look at the labels, guys. Know what you're feeding your family, because I wouldn't feed that meat to my dog.
Yeah, he wouldn't feed it to his dog, but they want you to eat it that way. And one of the ways they do that is to put the regular farmers out of business. Again, Big Ag doesn't care what they load up with glyphosate. And the World Economic Forum wants you buying the kind of lab meat that Bill Gates and these other people want. One way to do it is to make real food so expensive that you can't afford it. Meanwhile, you got the Republicans are proposing $1 billion of taxpayer dollars in order to build Trump's ballroom, his ballroom bunker. Again, when I look at this and his obsession with monuments to himself, his obsession with this ballroom, and of course, it's not just the ego aspect of it. I mean, he's looking at something that is a bunker for him because of what he's doing, the apocalypse that they're pushing as well. And so they've always portrayed this as a gift to the American people that's going to be paid for by private donors. But we all know how that works out, don't we? You know, you got these private donors that they seem to want something in exchange for that. It seems like that's always the case. He said, no way it's going to be government funds. He told people last November, he said, they're all private individuals that put up a lot of money to build the ballroom. Not one penny is being used from the federal government. Well, of course, he banned pennies, but that's beside the point. But the gleaming 90,000 square foot room that he's building, may ultimately put taxpayers on the hook for $1 billion. Why? Again, because of security enhancements that are tied to this project. So when we look at what they want to do with this stuff, we have to pay as they go to war with the world, as they make enemies of everyone, as everyone wants to not just kill the president or the people who are making these policies, but they want to kill every American based on this. In Mexico, there was a bar down there making headlines because while they charge most people a cover charge of like $25 to get in, if you are American, the charge is $300. What Trump has done, he's got Canadians hating and booing American teams. He's the ugly American that is getting everyone to hate us. Meanwhile, they say, well, because of this assassination attempt, we got to have the bunker. And yet the reality is, as people pointed out, you had Fox, and I played the clip, there were some Fox News guys that were caught on a hot mic talking about how pathetic the security was. Yeah, he's just going to hold the door open for people. Now there's a video clip out there. I'm not going to play it for you because it's all just visual. We have a lot of people who listen to this as a podcast, but you got 3 women who are there. They're part of TSA, and they're standing up against the wall when this guy's running and shooting at somebody, and they all bug out and run, and everybody's saying, look, they've got security. It's just some middle-aged women that are standing around, but they don't even have guns. I mean, there's not any point at them running at the attacker if they don't even have any guns. But again, when you look at this, it wasn't an issue. If they have that kind of security, even to get into a secure facility, that's not going to make them secure. So all of this stuff is just a head fake, as we typically see from the Trump administration. They said the structure, however, is vital for the president and for White House security. More than a ballroom, the project features underground medical facilities and a bomb shelter, because that's the price of empire that we pay. We make enemies of everyone, even people who were our allies. We're making enemies of them. I've had no briefing that gives me any insight into what could possibly cost $1 billion extra, said one Democrat, Coons. Remember, this started out as $300 million, and it was going to be privately run. Now it's going to be 3 times that, more than 3 times that. Going to be $1 billion, and it's going to be paid for by you and I. That's kind of the way these things go, isn't it? Trump acted without congressional approval, they say, people who are suing him. Well, you could say that pretty much about everything that he does. He doesn't get congressional approval. He doesn't have constitutional authority. And that applies to pretty much everything this guy continues to do. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to take a little bit of a look at Ted Turner. We got a lot of people talking about Ted Turner. I'm going to take a look at Ted Turner and his worldview. I got a little section here about Ted and Jesus.
Real quickly, though, we have a comment from DG8. It says, David, that ballroom will be paid the same way the wall that never happened was. Remember, Mexico will pay for the wall? David, I'm blown away by the lack of discernment when it comes to MAGA.
That's right. Well, maybe they can get Steve Bannon to set up a private.
He knows some Chinese billionaires, right?
Yeah, he doesn't want to go to jail again. I mean, Trump already bailed him out once because Steve Bannon set up this "We Build the Wall" thing and defrauded his own supporters, just like Trump. That's what MAGA does. I mean, we're talking about Steve Bannon, or you're talking about Alex Jones or Donald Trump. They're all out there ripping off their supporters, telling them they're going to do one thing, and then leading them into a trap. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Whether you're feeling like the blues or bluegrass, APS Radio has you covered. Check out a wide variety of channels on our app at apsradio.com.
Well, Ted Turner has gone to meet Jesus. Let's take a look at some of the things that he said about Jesus before he went to meet him. And of course, when you look at, Jane Fonda made a statement about, she was married to him for a while. She said, he was my favorite ex-husband. I guess she's had a lot of them. I wonder who the favorite ex-wife of Donald Trump is, and including the current wife. Which one does he like the best?
Probably the one that's passed away.
Yeah, the one that gave him the tax deduction when he buried her on his golf course. That's he's so fond of her for that. The gift that just keeps on giving, I guess. But
I think of her every year on April 15th.
Yeah, that's right. He had some interesting quotes about Christ and Christianity. He was supposedly raised in a devout Christian household, he said. But he turned on God. He was angry with God because when he was 20 years old, his younger sister died from a painful illness despite his prayers. So, what's the matter with you? You're the answer to that is, I guess the lesson they didn't learn in his Christian household is that God is God and you are not. And we don't get to make those decisions about things. And we also need to understand there's a reason why there is suffering and death in the world. It's because of our rebellion to God. And so when something like that happens, we need to put that in the proper context. We need to understand where we stand in rebellion to God, each and every one of us, and the mercy that he has shown us when we are still alive. But I've heard this story many, many times. Somebody's angry because of a loved one that died, angry because they didn't get what they demanded from God. You don't get to make demands on God. He is God and you are not. Nevertheless, he carried that grudge for quite some time. He later became an outspoken critic of organized Christianity. Though he apologized for some of the statements that he made and retracted some of his hardest statements. One of those that he later retracted was when he famously said, Christianity is a religion for losers. Well, actually, I agree with him on that. I think it's a religion for people who want to lose condemnation and punishment, and they want to lose the fact that they are enslaved to this sin that they serve. Yeah, you want to lose all of that? You want to lose the penalty of death that comes from our rebellion to God? Well, that really is there's a lot of things that you can lose as being a Christian. You can also lose your life so that you can gain eternal life. You can lose your life in terms of, this is going back to what Tallarico and the mainstream media doesn't understand about what those pastors said about him. They said he needs to be crucified with Christ. And that's a metaphorical thing, saying that you're going to give up your priorities in your life because you want a closer relationship with Christ. It doesn't earn anything with God. It is simply mercy that we get from God. But that does give you a closer walk with God. And there are rewards in this life and the next for that type of thing. Anyway, he goes on, he has this to say about the crucifixion. He said, Jesus Christ would have been considered just another long-haired hippie freak. if he had not been crucified. We talk about anachronisms, I guess. Did they have hippies 2,000 years ago, Travis? Not to my knowledge, I don't think, but
I haven't done an in-depth study of hippie history, but I'm fairly certain they didn't.
Yeah. He says, the folks weren't impressed with him healing the sick, feeding the multitudes bread, and or anything else like that, except maybe walking on water. But when he got crucified, that gave him his big start. Well, there you go. Now,
Also,
that's kind of interesting because
it appears we have lost connection. Our internet seems to be down. I'm going to go see if I can diagnose it.
Okay, so we're not on air?
I don't think so, but I mean, maybe carry on as if we are, because I'll see if I can get us back up and running.
Okay, well, let me just play a little bit of music here just in case, because I'm not sure if we're on.
Defending the American dream. You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Welcome back, folks. We had a technical issue, but we are back up and running.
Okay, great. And we won't go into what we think it might have been, but that's not important. The key thing is that we're back. I was just talking about the inherent contradictions of Ted Turner, because a lot of people have these type of contradictions. It's not just people who are billionaires and narcissists that have this kind of issue that's there. But I thought it was very interesting when he talks about, his comments. Well, he did all these miracles. He fed people, he healed people, he walked on water and all this kind of stuff. But it really didn't do anything for him until he got crucified. That's when he got his big start, he said. Well, it wasn't the crucifixion. It was the resurrection after the crucifixion that was his big start. And that's the big start for all of us. Yeah, we all have a death awaiting us, as Ted Turner did as well. It is that hope of resurrection that is the big start that we all hope in, and that is what our hope is in, and we have a confident expectation of that. And so there's all these inherent contradictions. Yeah, he's real miracles, but that didn't do it for people. And yet he comes back and he says, I don't like what I see Christians doing. And we've heard this over and over again. We've heard this from Gandhi, for example. I really like Jesus, but I don't like you Christians that are out there. I don't like the way you live your life. And it's like, yeah, that's right. Just like Ted Turner, just like Mahatma Gandhi, Christians have their problems because they're human. And we don't follow Christ precisely and exactly and the way that we should. He's complaining about a lot of the TV evangelists, I think. He said Jesus probably would be sick at his stomach if he could see the way his teachings are twisted by today's preachers.
Well,
again,
he
saying
can
that,
see that, Ted.
Yeah, exactly. The presumption there is that, he died, the crucifixion, that he's completely lost the resurrection understanding that is there. He is alive and he sees what is happening there. And again, seeing a CNN employee with ashes on their foreheads on Ash Wednesday, he made a comment to them, "What are you, a bunch of Jesus freaks? You need to be working for Fox." I don't know if they got Jesus freaks at Fox or not. Anyway, he blamed Christianity in part for the overpopulation issues, saying that it posits that people are more important than sea otters and elephants. Well, Ted, they are, because we are created in the image of God. This, I think, is the key issue with Ted. He worshiped the earth. He worshiped the environment. He worshiped Gaia. He had that Captain Planet thing that he did that was on his TV networks to teach kids to worship the environment. I don't know who he got that from. Maybe he got it from Jane Fonda. I don't know. But he could never understand the difference between worship and stewardship. This is where the environmentalists get it wrong. We're not called to worship the earth. We're called to take care of it. Why? Because we're created in the image of God, and he has put us in charge of this as a steward.
And this is one area where I do find a lot of fault with libertarians. They will just look you dead in the eye and tell you, well, if they can afford to buy all the property on earth and they want to bulldoze it and destroy everything and put down every animal, I suppose it's their right. It's like, no, it is not. Just because you have a piece of paper that says you own this land does not actually mean you're free to do whatever you want with it. You're expected to take care of it.
If you divorce the respect for individual liberty, if you divorce that from God, you have basically divorced it from the rationale for why we should have that. Again, the founders got that right. We have individual liberty because we're created in the image of God. And everybody deserves to have those types of protections that they put in the Bill of Rights because we are created in the image of God. If you get rid of God, you move God out of the equation, you have no basis for doing any of this. And I think that may be one of the reasons why John Adams said, we cannot have this form of government if we have an immoral people. If you reject God, you reject the fundamental argument for America, that we are created by God, that we are endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights. That's the fundamental idea. He was asked about the meaning of life as part of a book. He was asked to contribute to that as a 1991 book called The Meaning of Life, Reflections and Words and Pictures on Why We're Here. He rejected passive reliance on religion or an afterlife, and he emphasized action in the present world. Yeah, he was somebody who was purely secular. And you stop and think about it. Where does that word come from? Same root as the word second, right? In terms of a very short period of time. And if you have rejected the understanding of what we truly are, the afterlife, and you are living just for this 1 second, then you are secular rather than eternal in your perspective. And he certainly was living for the moment. So he said, you need to get off your knees, you need to roll up your sleeves and save yourself. He criticized traditional religion for focusing on commandments that are engraved in stone, but that didn't address creating paradise now. He would like Joel Osteen's church, I guess, right? Your best life now. Anyway, he proposed his own 10 voluntary initiatives instead of commandments, non-religious alternatives to the 10 commandments to make heaven here on earth, he said. And so stuff like this: love and respect the planet. Again, this is the Captain Planet guy, worshiping what God has put us in charge of as stewards. Have no more than 2 children. And when I look at this, he was always such a radical environmentalist. I know a lot of people have done deep dives and they got well-established theories as to who they think were behind these Georgia Guidestones. I always thought that he was involved in that in some way, whether he was funding it. He might not have been the guy who showed up to order the stones, but I just always could never get past the idea that I thought that Ted Turner was behind those things, because it sounds exactly like him. He said, use as few non-renewable resources as possible, contribute to those less fortunate than yourself to help them become self-sufficient. Well, that's not on the Georgia Guidestones. But again, all this stuff about not having any kids, we've got to reduce the humans because we are like a disease on this precious sentient planet of Gaia. He said, so support the total elimination of all nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons and support the United Nations, he said. Well, again, he was an environmental activist extraordinaire, and now he is a part of Mother Earth, I guess we could say, which is dust to dust, and we shall all return to that if that's all that we are. 1988 Reader's Digest profile. He framed his ambition in bold, larger-than-life terms. He said, I'm trying to set the all-time record for achievement by one person in one lifetime. And that puts you in pretty big company. Alexander the Great, Napoleon, Gandhi, Christ, Muhammad, Buddha, Washington, Roosevelt, Churchill. So there you go. One of those is not like the other. Unfortunately for Ted, he missed the true meaning of life, I think. Again, he had, in the last several years, he was suffering from a kind of dementia as well. And I saw this. Most Americans say they would give up nearly their entire paycheck for peace of mind. Well, that's the thing, is that money doesn't buy you peace of mind. And money doesn't buy you love, doesn't buy you a lot of different things. But they said they would just like to stop worrying. That's one of the things, you like to say that Christians are losers. That's one of the things that Christians lose, is their worry about life. They know who holds the future. Even though they don't know what the future holds, they know who holds it. And they have that trust, that peace that is there. That's one of the things that they've lost, is that anxiety that perhaps was a motivating factor in his life here. But he's not the only one who's involved in heavy self-worship. We have Obama has just opened up his, I love that they call these things libraries. Do you think these guys ever read? Obama and Trump. I know Trump pretty much doesn't read, but they have revealed their libraries. And some people put up a picture of Trump's design for a library. It's a glass skyscraper, pretty generic looking, quite frankly. And if you see the one on the right, that's Obama's. It looks like an urban renewal train wreck. But the people there, maybe it's because it is an eyesore, the people there in Chicago where he built it are not happy with him at all. This is what they're saying.
Obama, we're calling on you and Michelle. You and Michelle, come and apologize to Chicago for doing this. You come and apologize to South Shore for moving all these people out, displacing all these people, having J.B. Pritzker steal our property. Obama, before you come and cut that ribbon on this ugly building, come and apologize to South Side of Chicago.
It is ugly.
Chicago, period. People stood behind you thinking that you was going to be about something and you wasn't about nothing. You owe us an apology. We want an apology from Barack Obama.
Yeah,
we not leaving. We here all summer until he come. We here all summer until he come.
They don't have their moment to yell at him. Well, the thing is, when we look at this, people will find all kinds of things to worship. They'll worship themselves, especially if they're the elite. They'll worship themselves, but they'll also, you got Crick and Watson, who want to worship aliens, right? They looked at DNA. The guys who discovered it said, "Well, this is obviously design. Look at this. It's a code. We cracked that code." But it had to be intelligent. That couldn't have happened by accident, just like, you look at a car or building, you look at Obama's building. Somebody had to build that. They actually did that deliberately, built a building that ugly. But you have to have a designer for that. It doesn't just happen. But Crick and Watson, because they had decided that they were not going to recognize God, that was their presumption to begin with, they're going to create the idea that aliens came here and created the life. And so we got people like Richard Dawkins, we got Spielberg, all these guys are ready to worship aliens, or in the case of Richard Dawkins, he's ready to worship artificial intelligence. You don't think he'd fall on his knees and worship aliens if he could see them. And then, of course, we got the Zionist Christians who are out there worshiping a foreign government that is murdering and starting wars all over the country. So why not worship space aliens, when we got this? And we've got some pastors who are out there warning people. That said the Trump alien files could shatter Christian beliefs. Churches should prepare for it, claim pastors. I just have to say that there isn't anything that Donald Trump or Pete Hegseth could tell me that would make me not believe the Bible. I would not believe these two guys if they told me the sky is blue.
Or cooking up some real mind-boggling lies, fellas. You better prepare.
That's right. So again, would you believe anything this guy says? So they're saying this could shatter Christian beliefs. Don't believe it for a moment. In the same way that Ted Turner's belief in God was not shattered by the death of his sister. He had already given that up. He never really had any understanding or faith in that anyway. And so, again, when we look at, there really is a kind of a repeating pattern of attacks on the Bible. We've seen this for a very long time. If you go back to the early 1800s, you had people said, well, I think that these different civilizations, we don't have any evidence that there were civilizations like the Hittite civilization or whatever. That's just, it's a fairy tale story, right? There's no evidence those civilizations existed. Well, they hadn't looked, quite frankly. When they did go, when somebody finally did go, and you could see it in the artwork at the time as well, you would have a lot of artists, Rembrandt and others, would paint pictures of stories from the Bible, and yet they would paint these people that were there a couple of thousand years earlier. They would paint them as if they were their contemporary people. They'd paint them in the clothes that people would wear in their society at that time. And they would get the flora wrong. They would get the fauna wrong. They had never seen pyramids. They didn't know what any of this stuff looked like. And finally, when they went there, and again, I mentioned that because it just underscores the pure ignorance of the people in terms of not seeing that. When they finally did go there and they found some of these things, then they started, all archaeology for several decades was simply biblical archaeology. They could use the Bible, and they had a starting point. They could basically use the Bible, and they could find these different places exactly as described in the Bible. It truly was amazing. And so things started to really change. People started to see some physical evidence. And so then there was something new that came. And it was Charles Darwin and his theory of molecules to man evolution. We're not talking about genetic variation, which of course is a real thing. But we're talking about his idea that one species turns into another, one kind turns into another. And again, it was profound ignorance, as I've mentioned before. If you go to the British Museum and you look at the exhibit that's there, Charles Darwin, what his desk looked like, what his instruments look like, in terms of being able to look at and observe things as you would need to do with science, he simply had a magnifying glass like you and I would use to burn ants or something. There's no wonder that he looked at a glass of water that was sitting there getting stagnant, and the bacteria that was already there starts multiplying to the extent that he can see it. All of a sudden he thinks, well, that's spontaneous generation. We just had life come out of water, and we still see that. We still see people saying, well, look, there's water on these other planets. That means that there's life. No, the water does not generate life. You're going back to Charles Darwin again now. It doesn't generate life. It is a necessary condition for life, as we know it, but it is not sufficient as for life. Life is not going to evolve just because you've got water. And so we saw the same thing happen again. And that went through a period of time until people started actually being able to make scientific observation, until they could see things like DNA, till they could see what was happening with microbiology, where you had tiny machines within machines within machines. And as they looked at astronomy, they could see an expanding universe. They could see, so, well, then it has to have some kind of a beginning, some kind of a point. What did that? Okay, did everything come from nothing? Well, if there was ever a time when there was nothing, there still would be nothing. You have to have an organizing principle. And so as people start to see that, and now we are winning that argument in terms of observation, now they think that they can run this alien scam on us. But the bottom line is that these other situations that I had out there, it wasn't that archaeology did not prove the Bible right. The Bible proves itself right. It wasn't that scientists proved that evolution was wrong. The Bible shows what was true. It doesn't have to change. The science changes, the archaeology changes, our view of the world changes based on what we see. But the Bible remains constant, and it has always been true, and it will still be true. And it is the best evidence that we have, regardless of archaeological stuff or things that are very convincing. I think that you can make a convincing case for the Shroud of Turin, but that's not the basis of what we put our faith in. The Bible is the thing that is going to be there, that is there, it's going to remain there. That's the key thing to remember. And yet you've got all these articles. Some guy who is, here's his name, Perry Stone. They say he's a well-known evangelist, author, and Bible teacher from Tennessee. Well, I don't know who he is. But I'm seeing his thing out there saying, we got all these pastors who say they've been informed, they've been meeting in secret with people from the Trump administration and said, this is really damaging stuff to the Christian faith. No, it isn't. This smacks, folks, of the same kind of stuff that we have seen with QAnon. These people got some inside information from intelligence agents who are inside the Trump administration and all the rest of this baloney. And it's the same game that's being played over and over again. As a matter of fact, they said these are some really well-known and respected pastors out there who are going to tell people, well, I can believe that because they used very well-known and respected pastors to sell the lies about COVID. They came out and they war-gamed this. I've shown you the clips of Curtis Chang. He was given a lot of money by the Trump administration to come up with arguments to, and he had Robert Jeffress, who's got this big church in Dallas, big Baptist church in Dallas, and he's one of the big Trump supporters. And so Robert Jeffress goes on with Curtis Chang. They talk about how pastors need to educate their people and tell them that they need to love their neighbor by getting a vaccine, and on and on and on. They used all the talking points that Yale psychologists had put together. They gave these talking points to these pastors and these other videos and seminars and stuff, said, go out and tell this to your people that are out there. They had people like Franklin Graham who was pushing this kind of stuff. And so you just have to understand when you look at this, you have to use your discernment. You have to look at the bigger picture, and you got to look at the Bible that is there. That's going to help you to get past a lot of this stuff. So they're going to be running this same type of game again. I just talked yesterday about how the Israeli government is using a lot of these Christian Zionists to do the same type of thing they did with COVID. Yeah, we're going to tell the pastors, and these wolves in the pulpit are going to tell their sheep what to do. And so don't be that kind of a sheep. Be as harmless as doves, but as wise as serpents, because there's some serpents out there who are going to be telling you some stories. Stone said, you're going to have people who are going to say if there are galaxies and if there are allegedly other creations in the galaxies, then the whole creation story is a myth. You're going to have people that are going to apostatize and turn from the Christian faith because they have no answer for what they're about to hear. Well, I would suggest, we saw the same thing happening with evolution, with, like I mentioned before, with archaeology and other things like that. I would just suggest, if you got any questions about things like that, great apologetics ministry is Answers in Genesis and Ken Ham. And they do have the answers there. And they are answers that come from the Bible, not from somebody who has a worldview that's going to start by excluding God, like you have with Ted Turner, or like you had with Crick and Watson. Real science actually reinforces our understanding of God. And I think what we're probably going to see from this is we're going to see some multidimensional, if there is any evidence of this, it will be multidimensional. And in a sense, when it's rightly understood, it will be consistent with the Bible and it will reinforce the Bible. So I'm not worried about it. They've got these people. Here's another guy who's really well known, they said. Bishop Alan Didio of the Revival Nation Church. Never heard of him. And another guy, podcaster Tony Merkel. I looked at this stuff and it's like, this is a Daily Mail article. It reminded me of these, the seven sons of Shiva, the Jewish exorcists who are going around because Paul and other people were casting out demons, and they decided they'd start doing it as well. So they said, in the name of Jesus, we're going to cast out these. And the guy that's possessed with these
Peter,
demons says,
I know. And Paul, I know.
That's right.
But who are you?
Who are you? And so I would say the same thing. You're going to look at this and say, Tony Merkel and Bishop Alan Didio. I don't know these guys, but I know Jesus, and he's the one who casts out these doubts, these issues, and things like that. But just beware of these people. Again, there's this mystique that they're creating to say that there's some people on the inside. So these guys are part of, let's just say that they're Christians who are in intelligence operations. Is there some... He's a Christian, but he works for the CIA. You can trust him, right? He's not like Michael Flynn, who's out there leading prayers to ascended masters that he's plagiarized from Elizabeth Clare Prophet from 1980. They're not people like Steve Pachenik. No, you can really trust these people. Well, I know what you can trust, and it's not these people. And it's not somebody who's got the secret decoder ring because they work on the inside of the Trump administration. None of that stuff is anything that is really going to serve you well. So just spot the counterfeits that are out there. All three men urged churches to get ready now so that believers would not be shocked or deceived, but instead stay grounded in the Bible and their belief in Jesus throughout this great deception. Well, again, the old story was that in the old days when they weren't messing with the money all the time, they would train the bank tellers to spot counterfeits by teaching them what a real bill looked like. And that's the key thing. You want to look at what the real thing is. So that is where the answer is. Your faith is going to come from hearing God's word. And if you have that kind of faith, it's not going to be shaken with anything that the CIA or Donald Trump comes up with. Truly is crazy here. But let's take a couple of minutes that we got here. I thought this was really interesting what is happening with Waymo and with robots. We got a man who took a Waymo to the airport. He gets out of the car and he goes to the back to get his luggage out of the trunk. He pushes the button, but it doesn't open up. And the car drove away. Since there's nobody in the car, he couldn't get it to stop. He contacts Waymo and he goes, all of my luggage is in the trunk of one of your cars. And they said, we've got it safely at our local depot. And he says, well, mail it to me. And he said, no, we're unable to do that. They just, Alphabet, one of the richest corporations that ever existed, is unable to help him in this. They said, we're unable to cover the cost of shipping or courier fees. But, we'll have it here for you. And when you come back, we'll even credit you a ride on one of our cars to come get your luggage.
Oh, boy.
You better put it in the seat with him if he does that. And then in Austin, we had a car that was blocking traffic, a Waymo, got stumped by a small puddle. And so it stopped and clogged one lane and created a massive traffic jam. Flummoxed by a small puddle there in Austin, stalled out on the left side of a 2-lane road, refusing to get its tires wet in a small puddle under an overpass. Taking up an entire lane, the Waymo forced traffic to converge around it while it sat there in a daze. And then at the same time, because of the way Austin is set up, they had some massive flooding in some other areas where the Waymos just went straight through the flood. And so the question is, when you look at the streets in Austin, instead of fixing the roads, what they'll do is they'll put up a sign, this area is going to flood when it rains. They won't do anything about the drainage, or they just put up a sign. And I guess the Waymo things can't read that.
Well, you know what they say, more driverless cars, Waymo problems.
That's right, Waymo. So they're going to have way more flooding and way more stalling as well with that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, you got the robots are coming in big ways. And they're really ramping this stuff up. As a matter of fact, figure thinks that you're going to be able to get one of these things for, I don't know, maybe about $600 a month, they said. Oh, well, sign me up, I guess if you can afford to have a maid, this is even cheaper than an illegal alien coming in. I guess maybe they pay the maids more than $600 a month. I don't know what they pay them. Maybe not. I don't know. But again, this is their selling point. Do the dishes, do the laundry, that type of thing for just $600 a month. They have been rapidly escalating these things. As a matter of fact, they've been doubling the number that they've been shipping each month to where they've got now a couple hundred that they shipped in the last month. And yet, when you look at what China is doing, they're shipping thousands of them a month. So they're way ahead in terms of that. But this is the kind of society that we're looking at. They had one of these little, what do they call it, a Rizmo bot or something? Rizbot that was in Austin. They put one of these things on a plane because it was too big to check in. And then when they put it on the plane, the stewardesses were worried about it maybe acting up or something. So they had the whole plane stalled for an hour as they figured out what to do with a robot sitting in one of the seats. These are going to be the first world problems that some of us are going to be dealing with. Even if you don't own a robot, somebody that does may be delaying your plane for hours. Who knows? But we're out of time. We're going to not keep going at this point. But thank you so much for joining us. Have a good day. The common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.